Hello guys, you are welcome to this particular class, and in today's lesson we are going to be looking at a very beautiful concept which is considered the basics of not just necessarily chemistry but of all the sciences, the concepts of matter. We're going to be looking at matter and its classification. So first things first, it will be important for us to define our major theme we're going to be discussing this evening. So what exactly is matter? I'm very certain that you've used or you've heard the definition of this term several times, as matter is anything that has, number one, mass, and two, it must occupy space. What does this mean? Again, when I say mass, what am I talking about? In your physics class yesterday, you were taught the difference between mass and weight. And I'm sure that you understand what mass is. But what is mass exactly? Mass has to do with the quantity of material substance, what we call in science stuff, that makes up everything that we see. What is then space? Space just talks about the volume that something occupies. So if that is true, it simply means that for us to define what matter is, that particular stuff must have, number one, mass, and secondly, it must have volume. Now let us consider these three items and see if they qualify to the definition of what matter is. So if we look at the stone, here we have a glass of water and just smoke. Are all of these matter? How would I know? Will I just guess it? Of course, I don't want to guess it. I want to go back to my definition. What did my definition for matter say? It said matter is anything that has mass and occupies space. So for me to know if the stone or the glass of water or this smoke here is matter, it simply means that it must fit in to this definition. Does stone have mass? Yes. Does the water here, does it have mass? Certainly. What about the smoke? Of course it does. Do all of these occupy space? As in, do they have volume? They sure do. So they meet our definition for what matter is. In fact, matter is what makes up the material universe. If you can sense it with your five senses, touch, feel it, smell it, we are most probably looking at matter. If we consider these three pieces of material, which we just called matter, let me bring a pictorial diagram that shows what they look like if it were possible for you to zoom into all of these billions upon billions of times. What I'm saying is that if I zoom into this piece of rock or rock debris, which is stone I have here, what am I going to see? If I do the same thing for this glass of water, what would I see? Considering the smoke, if I do the same thing, what am I going to see? So what you're going to see is that the particles that make up the stone, for example, are tightly packed, which means there's no freedom of movement. They are not allowed to move about. Rather, they are only allowed to vibrate about that fixed position. So what does this lead to? It leads to all of these properties that I will show you now. The first thing we consider is it gives stuff like this definite shape. Secondly, you see that its volume is also going to be definite. It's not going to change volume all of a sudden. Imagine you are holding this stone in your hand, for example. What's going to make it possible for the volume to change? Do you know anything? If it must maintain this form, it must have this definite volume. So I just talked about how it vibrates about a fixed position. Now, any piece of matter that exhibits all of these characteristics are called a special kind of name. They are referred to as solids. Matter is divided into 3 at this level states, which means they naturally occur in 3 forms or states. So the first one we should just look at now is what we refer to as the solid state. And I just told you that in the solid state, that piece of matter must exhibit a definite shape. It must also have definite volume. Why is this possible? Just because they vibrate in a fixed position. Now, let's consider the water we have in here. If you zoom into this water, what are you going to see? You're going to see that the particles are loosely packed. If you compare this to what you have when you consider that for the solid, for the solid, it's tightly packed. So there's no freedom of movement. But for the liquids, what happens? It's loosely packed, so it can flow. The particles that make this water up have the ability to flow, to move. So the properties that they must exhibit for things like this is that they will not have a definite shape, unlike the solids. Why? The particles are not as tightly packed like you have in solids. Rather, they are allowed to move. So there's some degree of freedom. They can move apart. But they are not just totally loose, because there exists intermolecular forces that are binding the molecules that make up this piece of matter we are considering. So the force, intermolecular force, is still there. It's not just that, it's not as strong as what you have when you consider that of solids. So it makes the molecules to flow. That's why your water can flow. All of these are exhibited by liquid state. So any piece of matter that exhibits all of these things I just recounted to you is simply referred to as liquid. So yes, water is a liquid. Yes, oil is a liquid. I'm sure you have other examples. Now let's consider the smoke that we have here. What's its properties going to look like? Number one, they will not have a definite shape. Why is that so? It is so because if you compare it to what we have in the case of water and the case of the stone, which is a solid, and water, which is a liquid, the intermolecular force that binds the particles that make up this smoke in question is so small, it's almost negligible. So the particles are so far apart from each other. Most parts, if you consider what we have here in the diagram, let's look at this. If you consider the spaces here, you see that the space between them is so far apart, right? Unlike what we have here and here. In this scenario, you don't even have spaces at all, so they can only vibrate just in the position. Here, they can flow a bit because at least there's this strong intermolecular force. But the intermolecular force that exists here is so small that's allowing the particles, all of these, to move away from each other. So that's why you see them exist in something like this. So far apart, so loose. So if you are asked, what is responsible for the states that you find matter, different states, you know that it is the forces of intermolecular force that exist in the particles that's responsible for it. If I remove heat from this, what is going to happen? It will increase the intermolecular force. So the particles will go, move, and look something that looks like this. So it will leave the gaseous state and will look more like the liquid state. If I continue to do that, it will move onto the solid state. So all the particles will be so strong and so tightly packed. Now, let us consider water, for example. Let's say you're looking at water. What do you see when you look at water? I'm very certain it looks something like this. But if you are privileged to use some sort of microscope, in this case, a tunneling electron microscope, what you are going to see will be totally different from just this. Because of our optical disadvantage, we can't see the stuff with our naked eye, our optical eyes that make up matter. But with the tunneling microscope, what you're going to see will look more like this. You will be able to see the particles that make up water. So here they are. We have H2O, which is a molecule. This molecule is, if you consider the distance between all of these, you see that I told you earlier that water is a liquid. The reason it's a liquid is because the intermolecular force that exists between its particles, in this case, the molecules that make up the water, is not as strong as what you have in solids. So these molecules are able to move. If you trace this, you see this one moving this way like this. Follow this one, is going this way. All right? So it's able to move about within the mix. Okay. Let's consider something else. Let's say we have ice, for example. What are we going to see in ice if we're able to zoom into it? We have it that the molecules, H2O, that make up the ice, will be so tightly packed, and they will just be vibrating about a fixed position. If we consider steam, what are we going to see? We are going to see that it will be so far apart. Maybe one molecule of water will be here, another will be here, another will be here. This will make it have all the properties of a gas that we saw earlier. No definite shape, no definite volume, and a very high degree of randomness. I hope you get the idea. Okay. Now, let us look at classification of matter. We deal with matter around us 24/7. So it makes sense for us to classify correctly matter. So matter can be classified broadly into two groups. It is either that piece of matter is what is called a pure substance, or it is not. If it is not pure, what is it? It will be impure, right? But in chemistry, we prefer to use the term mixture to define that. So what exactly are pure substances? A pure substance is a substance which you can sample. You can sample that piece of matter because it has definite or constant composition and a distinct chemical property. What does this mean? In simple terms, this simply means that for the substance will have same chemical composition regardless of where you are sampling it from. If we consider a piece of iron rod, for example, let's say this is iron. Let's say this is a bar of iron, for example. What is iron made up of? Iron is made up of iron atoms. So we have Fe, 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 Fe. If I sample, okay, let me just do this. You should have Fe here. Just about everywhere you sample, you're going to have iron atoms. Why? Because you are considering an iron rod, right? So if I take a sample from, let's say, I take a sample here, for example, and I take it to the lab, I'm going to see that this O piece has this. What if I come here, let me say here, for example, and I take a sample from this? What am I going to see? I'm also going to see that it is also made up of iron. So we consider stuff like this in chemistry a pure substance. Now, what happens if what I sample from here is different from another place? Then it's no longer pure. We refer to things like that as mixtures. So one quick question for you. Is water a pure substance? Think about it. Is water a pure substance? Let's say I have a jug of iron of water like this. Let's say this is water. All right. Now, if I take a sample, let me say I sample this part and I take it to the lab. We know that I told you earlier that water is made up of H2, right? If I do this, am I going to get this? What if imagine I take another sample from around there and I go to the lab? Am I going to get just H2O? Am I going to get H2O? All right. You're not going to get H2O. The reason is because there is impurities in nature. So the correct question should be, is pure water pure? Pure water should only have H2O. But in reality, we know that water is also made up of impurities. Sometimes you have dissolved calcium in it, carbon in it, and you even have certain germs in it. So if I sample from this part, for example, I might have the one that have germs and calcium, and I come here and I sample, I might get something that has dissolved sodium inside. That is not, since it is not uniform, but if we follow what we said here, you say for E is a pure substance, we have same chemical composition no matter where you sample. Now we've sampled here, what we get in is different from what we got when we sampled here. So water, if you just see the question like that, water is not a pure substance. But pure water is a pure substance. So when you say, I want to buy pure water, there's no pure water in nature. All of the waters we have are already contaminated, unless you're getting it from the laboratory. But you can easily say, I want potable water. What do I mean potable? It's not contaminated. It can't kill you. You can eat it. You can use it. All right, so that's where we are. Okay. Now, for you to understand the concept of matter very well, it is very important for you to understand the concept of the atoms. So, what is the atom? When I was defining what matter is, I said that matter are made up of atoms or molecules. We just considered water and we said water is made up of H2O molecule. But we know that hydrogen is an atom, oxygen is an atom. What is an atom? An atom is just a tiny bit of substances that make up everything we have in the material universe. So we have a total of 118 atoms. And these 118 atoms is responsible for every stuff that you see in the material universe. When you were younger, if you ever played with Lego structures, you remember those structures that you could use to build whatever, maybe bridges, in this case houses, but they're just tiny bits. This is just one of them. This is a Lego structure. This is another one, another Lego. With these two, we've built this, we've built this. Same way these atoms built everything we see in the material universe. So any form of matter you see is made up of this atom in different sort of combination, just like we have in the Lego structures. If this is true, it simply means that water is made up of a kind of combination between atoms. What atoms are we considering in this case? Hydrogen atom and oxygen atom. But in this case, to form water, which is matter, two hydrogen atoms combined with one oxygen atom. This is how water was formed. Now, when we are looking at combination of atoms, they form what is called molecules. So when atoms combine, two or more, we have what is called a molecule. Is it possible that water is a molecule? Yes, because it is made up of a combination of 3 atoms, 2 of which are hydrogen and 1 of which is oxygen, right? Okay. Is it possible for only 1 atom to form matter? Yes. We just looked at iron, for example. Whenever you are holding a bar of iron, what you are holding is just a piece of matter that is made up of only 1 type of atom. Such materials are what we refer to as elements. So, the definition that says that an atom is the smallest particle of an element is true. Why? Iron atoms combined to form this rod of iron. So the smallest part will be this unit. So I can say that an atom is the smallest particle that forms this element, iron. So an element is simply the purest form in which something exists. If a piece of matter is made up of only 1 type of atom, we say that that particular matter is an element. If it is made up of 2 different types of atoms, we refer to it as a compound. So it makes sense to say that a compound is a type of molecule that is made up of different atoms. Let us look at hydrogen gas. Hydrogen plus hydrogen will give us hydrogen gas as we have it in nature. Oxygen plus oxygen will give us oxygen gas, the one that we breathe, which is molecular oxygen. We say it's molecular. That adjective qualifying the oxygen is because it is now made up of 2 atoms of oxygen. What about this? Hydrogen. This is molecular hydrogen because it is made up of 2 atoms of hydrogen. What happens when we have H2 plus O2 to give us H2O? To balance this equation, we put our 2 here, put our 2 here. We see that we are now having this. We have hydrogen and we also have oxygen, 2 different atoms. I told you that when atoms combine, they form what is called molecules. Now, when these molecules are made up of different types of atoms, they get a particular name. Compound. It's a compound molecule because it is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. I hope you get the idea. So this is where we will draw the curtain for today, and we'll continue the class tomorrow. See you guys.